let's go. Hey, casual wrestling community show. You already know, talking WWE.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, though, on the first episode of Smackdown coming out of WrestleMania, Roman Reigns swerved the WWE Universe and declared that the Usos should go to Monday Night Raw and unify the tag team titles. My question to the CWC and to social media is the WWE officially about to end the brand split for real this time? Now, my take on this, with the Universal and WWE titles already unified, I think we're staring down somewhat of an end of a brand split, but not entirely, I guess. I have more questions than I have answers for this topic, and that's why I'm going to rely on you guys to kind of come in and help me out here. But 3 big questions that I have on the brand split topic is, how does a non-brand split company function with 2 competing television contracts airing Raw and SmackDown? Mm-hmm. You have Fox and NBC respectively having a contract for each show, and neither one is going to want to go back to, at one time the WWE had what they called an A and a B show. Okay, so Monday Night Raw was where all the real shit happened, and SmackDown was where like, we don't really care about it, we're gonna put you on SmackDown. Yeah. I don't think we're going to that. Okay, question number 2 I have, are these champions going to start floating back and forth from show to show? Is that what we're gonna do? Is have 2 separate rosters and just float champions back and forth? And my third question is, with these titles unified, are we going to elevate the prestige of the United States and the European titles, or are those titles already just too fucked up and damaged? I want to look at each question individually. How can a non-brand split roster work with 2 competing networks? I think there's a way to appease both companies without compromising too many storylines. Right now, there's technically 4 belts that matter in the men's division. Would you agree? There's both tag team belts.
Okay.
And there's a Universal and a WWE title, which are both on Roman Reigns. But those are the 4 belts that WWE puts emphasis on. They absolutely do not make the United States or the Intercontinental titles seem like they're worth a shit.
Okay.
I'm sold on this idea. They've sold me on the idea. Let's keep the Universal Undisputed WWE Championship. Let's keep that unified. It gives a prestigious value to one person in the company. It elevates them above everybody else. It puts them on top of the WWE mountain. It makes them feel special. Roman Reigns feels like the big dog right now. He's the only guy holding one of those real pretty belts right now.
Yes.
I also do love the idea of combining the tag team titles as well, because what it does is it creates an overall stronger division. I said this a couple months ago. The reason AEW seems like they have so many great tag teams and so many great wrestlers is there's only one division. So all the tag teams fight all the tag teams all the time.
Yeah.
All the single stars fight all the single stars all the time. In WWE, when you have 8 great tag teams, typically you put 4 on one show and 4 on the other. I don't like that idea. So here's how you could strategically, in common sense, cut down the number of belts while maintaining 2 separate rosters.
Okay.
You could unify the tag team titles, okay? But instead of putting them both on the Usos, you could put them both on RK Bro. Unify them and bring them to Monday Night Raw. Mm-hmm. Make tag team wrestling great on Monday Night Raw. Now, we have the major title and the SmackDown. Wait, what do I have written down here? Oh, okay. So what I'm trying to say here is, what you would have is you'd have Monday Night Raw would feature the tag team belts. Monday Night Raw would become the tag team show. SmackDown would still have the unified title, and it could feature the unified title in the men's division. SmackDown would become home to the greatest individual superstars, while Raw would become home to the best tag teams in the business. As long as you create interesting tag teams with legit superstars, this can work. Next step, we unify the women's championship as well. Because if we're going to start unifying things, let's go down the list and let's quit with the 2 titles for these things. And what we would do is when we unify the women's championship, we put that belt on Monday Night Raw. So now Raw would have a Universal Champion, women's, a men's tag team titles, and it would have the United States Championship. SmackDown, in turn, would get the Universal Men's Championship, the biggest belt in all of wrestling. You could put the women's tag team title on there, and with only one women's belt, you would get more women available for interesting tag teams. And then you could elevate the Intercontinental Championship and have those belts 24/7 should stay on Monday Night Raw because it's a 3-hour show. But now you have balance, right? Because you have one, let's equalize the men and women's titles, because the women have main evented so many big events now. And people like me, I'm more interested in the women's championship match half the time. So let's equalize though, and let's have all the best women fight on Monday Night Raw and all the best men fight on SmackDown, and then vice versa with the tag team belts. So that answers that question. So question number 2 is, do you float the champions back and forth? And my answer is yes and no. Okay. You can float the 2 Universal champions, the men and the women's, back and forth, but you always should balance it. So if the men's belt moves to Raw, the women's champion should go do a what would you call it? Like a residency on SmackDown and go through some of that roster. So you could have the champions float back and forth, but you just have to keep the balance.
Yeah.
And then last question is, are the US and Intercontinental belts, are they 2 shot, or can they actually mean something? I think they can mean something. I still think they're viable titles. But what you have to do is you have to take those titles and you have to begin to treat those titles the way you were treating the Raw or the Universal and the WWE Championship. Elevate those to main talent level championships. Put those belts on people like Brock Lesnar, AJ Styles, Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley, Kevin Owens, Seth Rollins. Start ending Monday Night Raw featuring these belts. Start ending SmackDown featuring these belts. Don't always have Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns needs to feel like a special attraction. The Universal title should always feel like, from this point on, like it's a huge deal. Like if you get to challenge for that belt, you're about to be in the money. Your whole life is going to change. It should be the biggest opportunity of your wrestling career to get an opportunity at that undisputed title.
Oh, definitely.
And it should seem like an insurmountable quest to be able to get a chance at that belt. Like, I'm okay with even the undisputed title only being defended at like major pay-per-views, or at least like every other pay-per-view. Just like keep that belt off TV and have these long, illustrious title runs that make it feel special. It will elevate guys to another level and just create legacies. And you need big, elaborate buildups to the matches. Make them epic. Gone are the days when a guy like Shinsuke Nakamura just walks down the ramp, looks at Roman Reigns and goes, I'm going to fight you next. Like, how does that make sense? What did he do? He lost at WrestleMania. He lost his partner. And all of a sudden he struts out, gets in Roman Reigns' face, and you're the next guy about to get a shot at this title. That kind of stuff doesn't make sense. Make these guys prove themselves. Make them go through a list of main event stars to get that opportunity. Make them hold the Intercontinental belt for 6 months before they go, I've done it with this belt, now I can go for that belt. And if you do that, you can add a level of prestige to this thing, right? So I think we need more like contender tournaments. AEW does that well. I will say AEW does that well. The contenders tournaments, making records, I know they don't matter, but just making it feel like you do need to win a few fucking matches to get a title shot, right? Like you can't be Shinsuke and have lost the Intercontinental belt, lost at WrestleMania, lost your partner, lost to the Usos, and all of a sudden you're next in line for the WWE title. Now we don't know for sure he is, but it seemingly felt like he was.
Step in the ring, if you ready, let's go. Ay, casual wrestling community show. You already know, talking WWE. Keep it rolling and hosted by notorious Nerdy D. Dope a show that you gon' find. Tune in cause it's online. Hit 'em with a figure 4 leg lock, power driver or clothesline. We bring